The night was dark, and the wind carried the smell of dust and old iron. A lone man walked across the broken ground, his steps heavy, his breath sharp in the cold air. He was a human, tired and thin, his clothes torn, his face hard from many years of struggle. Every step echoed with silence, for there was no one else in this place. No friend, no family, no guide. He had come here looking for scraps, old metal, or something he could sell. Life had been cruel to him, pushing him from one ruined town to another. Now, in this strange land, he searched again, hungry, weak, but unwilling to give up. Then he heard it. At first it was faint, like the sound of wind through hollow pipes. But the sound changed. It was not the wind. It was a cry, soft and broken. He stopped, his heart jumping, his ears straining in the silence. The cry came again, low, almost like a whisper. It sounded like pain or fear or both. His body froze. His mind told him to turn away, but something inside pulled him forward. He began to follow the sound. Step by slow step, the land grew stranger as he walked. Tall rocks rose like broken teeth. Shadows stretched long and sharp. The air felt colder, heavier, as if warning him not to go on. Still, he moved forward, his hands shaking, his eyes searching. Finally, he saw it. In the middle of a clearing stood a pillar of stone, tall and rough, and tied to that pillar was a girl, not a human girl, but an alien. Her skin was pale with a faint silver glow under the moonlight. Her hair, long and tangled, shimmered faintly as though made of threads of light. Her head hung low, and her hands were bound. Above her, nailed into the pillar, was a cruel sign, scratched in both alien script and human words. Take as you please. The man felt his chest tighten. He had seen cruelty before. He had lived, with hunger and shame. But this sight cut deeper than anything he remembered. A living being, left here like an object, abandoned to strangers. Her body trembled, weak, and her lips moved as though she was whispering for help. He stepped closer, his voice shaking. Who did this to you? The girl slowly lifted her face. Her eyes were bright, a strange color between violet and blue. They were filled with tears, but also with something else, something like fire. She looked at him, not as an enemy, not as a stranger, but as if she was holding on to her last hope. Please, she whispered, her voice cracked and weak. Don't leave me here, not like this. The man felt his throat go dry. He looked around, afraid. The land was empty, but the silence felt heavy, as though unseen eyes were watching. Why are you here? He asked. What crime could bring such punishment? Her eyes closed, and she shook her head slowly. They call it punishment, but it is shame. It is control. It is cruelty. She took a slow breath, her voice trembling. They wanted me to obey. I refused. So they left me here, as nothing, as a warning to others. The man felt anger rising in his chest. He had been thrown away before, forgotten, treated as less than human. He knew the pain of being unwanted, but to see it done like this, to someone so young, so fragile, filled him with fire. Still fear pulled at him. If her people had left her here, then surely they watched. Surely they wanted someone to take her or to harm her. Maybe this was a trap, maybe saving her would bring death. His hands shook as he reached for the ropes. The girl's eyes widened with hope, but then a sound, a low growl, heavy footsteps on the stone. The man froze, his ears straining, his heart beating like a drum. Shadows moved at the edge of the clearing, long and sharp. The girl's lips parted, her whisper urgent. They are coming, she breathed. Please, choose now. Save me or leave me. But choose before it's too late. The man's chest rose and fell, his mind racing. In front of him was a stranger, an alien, punished for reasons he did not yet understand. Behind him was danger, shadows moving, closer, footsteps growing louder. He looked at her bound hands, her trembling body, her pleading eyes, and for the first time in many years he felt something stronger than fear. He took a step forward, closer to her. The darkness behind him grew thicker, the footsteps closer. His hands reached out, brushing against the cold rope. The girl whispered, again her voice weak but burning with hope, "Please." And then, just before he could act, the clearing filled with a sound, a voice deep and cruel echoing through the night. "Who dares touch what is not theirs?" The man turned, his heart frozen in his chest. The shadows shifted, and from the darkness a figure stepped forward, tall, armored, eyes glowing like fire. The hunt had already begun. The man's breath caught as the armored figure stepped into the clearing. The stranger was tall, his armor dark and cracked with glowing lines of red. His face was hidden under a mask, but his eyes burned through the night like embers. The sound of his boots against the ground echoed heavy and sharp. The man wanted to run, but his feet stayed frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. The alien girl trembled against the pillar, her voice a whisper. "Do not let them take me again, please." Her words cut through his fear. He turned back to her, torn between saving her and saving himself. The figure spoke, his voice like iron. "She was punished, left here as a gift. Anyone may use her, anyone may break her, but no one may free her." The words struck the man like cold steel. He felt sickness rising inside him, the cruelty in those words more heavy than the armor the stranger wore. He clenched his fists, his body shaking. All his life he had been weak, pushed aside, ignored, surviving only on scraps, and now here he stood, before a choice greater than any he had faced. If he touched those ropes, he would make himself an enemy of this armored figure. But if he walked away, he would be no different from those who had left her here to suffer. The man swallowed hard, his throat dry. What crime did she commit? Why leave her like this? The figure's laugh was low, sharp. She refused. She defied her fate. She thought herself more than property, so we made her less than nothing. The words lit fire in the man's chest. He turned his eyes to the girl, her tears glowing faintly in the moonlight, her lips moved weak. "Please, I cannot take another night alone." The man's heart roared louder than his fear. He reached forward, his hands pulling at the rope. The figure growled, his voice heavy. "You dare defy her sentence? Do you wish to die, human?" The rope cut into his skin as he pulled, his fingers bleeding, but he did not stop. The girl gasped as the ropes loosened, her body shaking as if she could not believe it. She looked at him with wide eyes, her voice trembling. Why help me?" He did not answer because he did not know. All he knew was the feeling burning inside, a fire that said no one deserved this, not her, not anyone. The last rope snapped, and she fell into his arms, weak, almost too light. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breath soft but fast. The armored figure roared, raising a blade glowing with red fire. The man turned, holding the girl close, his body trembling. He had no weapon, no shield, nothing but his will. The blade came down, but he moved, stumbling, running with her clutched tight. The strike missed by inches, burning the stone where she had been tied. "Run," she whispered, her voice sharp even in weakness. "Run, or we both die." And so he ran. The ground shook with each step of the armored hunter behind them. The forest loomed ahead, dark and endless. Branches cracked under his boots as he carried her through the trees, her arms weakly wrapped around his neck, her breath hot against his ear. Behind them came the sound of pursuit, heavy, endless. The figure shouted in the night, his voice carrying far. "You cannot run, human. She belongs to us. She will always belong to us." The man's chest ached, his lungs burned, but he did not stop. His feet stumbled over roots and stones, yet he pushed forward. Every moment, he thought he would fall. But then he felt her weak grip tighten. That single touch gave him strength he did not know he still had. The forest was alive with danger. Shadows moved between the trees, strange creatures hissed, their eyes glowing faintly. The man's heart raced, his ears filled with the sound of footsteps chasing him. He whispered through his teeth, "Hold on just a little longer." They reached a ridge where the moonlight broke through. The man stopped, gasping for air, his body trembling. He looked down at the girl in his arms. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faint in the darkness. "Why did you choose me?" she asked again, her voice almost a plea. He looked at her, his chest rising and falling like waves. "I could not leave you. No one deserves this." Her eyes filled with tears, tears that seemed to shine brighter than stars. "No one has ever said that before," she whispered. Then her head fell against his chest, her breath fading. The man panicked, shaking her lightly. "Stay with me, don't close your eyes." But her body was weak, broken by long suffering. He pulled her closer, holding her as if to keep her alive, with his strength alone. And then the sound returned, boots crushing stone, armor grinding, the voice echoing in rage. "You cannot hide, human. Your choice has sealed your fate." The man turned, his heart still pounding, his body shaking. He knew the truth now. There was no going back. By freeing her, he had crossed a line he could never step away from. She was hunted, and now so was. Or he looked into the forest ahead, dark and deep, his breath sharp, his body weak, but his will unbroken. He whispered to the girl in his arms, "I will not let them take you no matter what." And with those words, he stepped into the shadows of the forest. The night closed around them, filled with danger, filled with fear, but also with something new, something fragile yet bright, hope. The forest swallowed them whole. The branches stretched like claws above, blocking the moonlight. Each step felt heavier, each breath sharper, as the man carried the alien girl in his arms. Her body was weak, her head resting against his chest, her eyes closed, but her heart still beat, faint and stubborn. Behind them, the sound of pursuit thundered. The armored hunter's boots crashed against stone and root. Every step rang with rage, a promise that the hunt would not end. The man's legs shook, but fear pushed him forward, fear and something else, a new fire that refused to die. The forest was alive with strange noises. Leaves whispered though no wind moved them. Shadows shifted though no shape could be seen. Eyes glimmered from the darkness, watching, waiting. The man felt every hair on his neck stand up. But he had no choice. The open land behind them was death. The forest ahead was their only chance. He stumbled over a fallen branch, nearly dropping her. Her eyes opened weakly, glowing faint like fading stars. She whispered, her voice soft and broken. "They are close. I can feel them." Her hand gripped his shirt with surprising strength. "Don't stop, please. If they take me, I will never be free again." Her words struck deep. He nodded, though his chest burned with every breath. "I won't let them," he whispered back, though his own voice shook. The forest thickened, vines curling like snakes, trees rising like black towers. The man found a narrow path and followed it, his ears sharp to every sound. The hunter's voice echoed deep and cruel. "You cannot run, human. She belongs to us. She will always belong to us." The words twisted through the trees like poison. The man's jaw tightened, his fear sharpening into anger. At last he saw a cave, its mouth dark and deep between two broken stones. He slipped inside, his breath ragged, lowering the girl gently against the wall. She winced, but managed to sit, her eyes glowing faint in the shadows. The man crouched, pressing his back against the cave wall, listening. Outside, the forest groaned with the weight of footsteps, armor clashing softly. The hunter was close. The girl whispered, her voice trembling. "They will not stop. They will chase until we are caught." The man turned to her, whispering sharply, "Why? What did you refuse? What was so great a crime that they would hunt you like this?" Her eyes lowered, her hands trembling in her lap. "I refused to be given away. I refused to bow. They said I must obey. But I said no." Her voice cracked with pain and shame. "They said I was nothing then. Less than nothing. So they tied me to the pillar to be taken, broken, or left to die." The man's heart burned with anger. He clenched his fists, his voice low. No one should suffer for saying no. No one should be treated like this. She looked at him, tears filling her eyes. "No one ever said that before," she whispered. A sound snapped the moment, a heavy footstep just outside the cave. The man froze, pressing himself against the shadows. The girl covered her mouth, her body trembling. The glow of red light flickered at the cave entrance. The hunter was here. The armored figure stepped into the cave's mouth. His eyes burned like coals, his blade glowing with red fire. The man's breath stopped, his body rigid. He had no weapon, no shield, nothing but his bare hands and the weak girl behind him. The figure stepped closer, each step echoing like thunder in the stone. The girl grabbed the man's arm, whispering sharply, "Don't fight him. You cannot win. He is stronger, faster. You will die." The man shook his head, his jaw tight. "If I leave you, I am already dead." The hunter raised his blade. The glow lit the walls, casting twisted shadows. The man pushed the girl deeper into the cave, shielding her with his body. The blade slashed down and he rolled to the side, the stone hissing as it burned under the strike. The cave filled with smoke and firelight. The man grabbed a broken rock, his hands shaking. He swung it with all his strength, striking the hunter's mask. The blow cracked against the metal, forcing the hunter back one step. The alien roared, his voice like thunder shaking the cave walls. "You think you can fight me, human? You are nothing." The girl raised her hands, her eyes glowing brighter. The ground under her shimmered with faint light. The stone pulsed, sending a soft wave through the cave. The hunter paused, his blade lifting high. The man stared at her, shocked. You have power." Her eyes filled with fear. "It is small, it cannot stop him, but it can hide us for a little while." She pressed her hand to the ground and the glow spread, wrapping the cave in a veil of shadows. The hunter growled, striking the walls, his blade cutting stone, but the cave twisted, shifting in his sight. He roared in frustration, unable to find them. The man held her as she collapsed, the glow fading from her hands. Her breath came shallow, her face pale. "You used your strength," he whispered. She nodded weakly. "It will not last. He will return, stronger, angrier." The man pulled her close, his voice sharp with promise. "Then we will keep running, and I will not let them take you no matter what." Outside, the forest was silent, but the silence felt heavy. The hunt was not over, only delayed. The man tightened his arms around her. For the first time in years, he had something worth protecting. And for the first time in her life, she was not completely alone. The cave was silent except for the sound of two hearts beating, one heavy and fast, the other faint and weak. The man sat against the wall, his arms wrapped around the alien girl, his breath still sharp from the fight. His hands trembled, his body ached, but his mind was burning with questions. She had saved them with a strange light, power hidden deep inside her, but it had left her nearly broken. The faint glow on the walls was gone now, leaving only darkness. Outside, the forest whispered with unseen dangers, but for the moment the hunter was gone. The man looked down at her, her eyes half closed, her lips pale. "You risked your life to save us," he whispered. "Why?" She opened her eyes slowly, their glow dim but still filled with quiet fire. "Because I did not want to die tied to a pillar, and I did not want you to die for me." Her words were soft but sharp, cutting into his chest like a blade of truth. He studied her face, thin, tired but still strong in spirit. "Tell me," he said. "Tell me why they punished you. Tell me why they would leave you like that, marked with shame." She turned her head, her voice low. "You will not understand. Human, your kind lives with freedom of choice, my kind does not." The man leaned closer, his voice firm. "Try me." Her lips trembled, her hands gripping her knees. "They wanted me to bow, to obey the order of offering," she whispered. "They choose some among us, to be given away to the rulers, to be used, to be broken, to be nothing but property." Her body shook as she spoke, her tears sliding down her cheeks. "They told me I must smile as they gave me away. I must lower my head and accept my fate. But I said no." The man's chest tightened, his fists clenching. "They punished you for saying no?" he asked, his voice heavy with anger. She nodded slowly. Yes, they said my no was rebellion. They said I was dangerous. They said I was selfish, so they tied me to the pillar, to shame me, to let others take me until nothing of me was left. Her words filled the cave with a pain deeper than silence. The man looked at her, and for the first time, he saw not only weakness but courage, a girl who chose to fight against a life of chains, even when her fight brought only suffering. He felt something stir inside him, something he thought long dead: respect. She looked up at him, her voice trembling. Now do you see? I was never meant to be free. I was meant to vanish, to disappear, to remind others never to disobey. Her eyes searched his face, afraid of his answer. Do you regret it? Freeing me? Do you wish you had left me there? The man shook his head slowly, his voice steady. I regret many things in my life, but not this. Never this. Her lips parted, her tears falling, and for a moment the fear in her eyes softened. No one had ever spoken such words to her. No one had ever chosen her. But before the moment could last, a sound broke the air. The crack of branches, the hiss of voices outside. The man froze, his ears straining. The girl's eyes widened, filled with terror. They have not given up, she whispered. They will hunt until they catch us. The man helped her to her feet, her body weak, but her spirit unbroken. Then we must move. We cannot wait here, he said, his voice firm. She leaned against him, her steps slow, each one a battle, but she did not fall, she would not fall. They slipped out of the cave into the forest again. The night air was heavy, the trees whispering as if they carried secrets. Every shadow felt alive, every sound a warning. The man's eyes scanned the dark, searching for danger. The girl's voice was soft, almost like a ghost in the night. They will not stop, do you understand? To them, I am a crime that must be erased, and now you are part of that crime too. The man's jaw tightened. Then let them come, he said, his voice sharp. I will not give you back, not to them, not to anyone. They moved deeper, into the forest until the trees opened to a small stream. The water glowed faint under the moonlight, soft and strange. The girl knelt beside it, her reflection trembling on the surface. She touched the water and it shimmered, glowing brighter for a moment. The man watched in silence, his heart heavy with questions. She looked at him, her face lit by the strange light. There is something. I have not told you, she whispered. Her voice shook, but her eyes were steady. They did not only punish me for saying no, they punished me because I carry something they fear. The man frowned, stepping closer. What do you mean? She pressed her hand harder into the water, and the glow spread like veins of light. The power you saw in the cave, the light I used, it is forbidden. It is not meant to exist. Her breath grew heavy, her voice low. They say it is a curse, a danger, but I know it is more than that, and that is why they will never stop hunting me. The man's heart pounded, his mind spinning. So this was not just rebellion, not just refusal, but something far greater. She was not only a victim, she was a threat to them, a symbol of defiance and power. He looked at her, his voice steady. Then they fear you, because you are stronger than they want you to be. She looked back at him, her tears falling into the glowing water. Or maybe because I am not what they want me to be. Before he could answer, a sound split the night. The crack of wood, the thud of armored boots. The man spun around, his eyes sharp. The glow of red light flickered between the trees. The hunter had found their trail again. The girl's body tensed, her voice sharp with fear. They are here. We cannot fight them. Not yet. The man grabbed her hand, pulling her to her feet. Then we run and we keep running. Together they stepped into the shadows of the forest once more. Behind them, the hunter's voice roared. You cannot hide. She belongs to us. But ahead of them was the unknown. Dark and dangerous, and for the first time the man felt it clear in his chest. This fight was no longer about survival. It was about truth, and he would not let it be silenced. The forest stretched endlessly, dark and alive. Every tree felt like a watcher. every branch like a hand reaching for them. The man led the way, his grip firm on the alien girl's hand, his eyes sharp for danger. Her steps were slow, her breath heavy, but she did not ask him to stop, not once. Behind them, the hunter's voice still echoed faintly, but the sound grew distant. For a while, the forest swallowed the pursuit, wrapping the two in uneasy silence. The man's heart beat fast, but it was not only fear anymore, it was something else, something warmer. When he looked at her, even in her weakness, he saw strength shining in her eyes. They reached a hill where the moonlight fell, silver and cold. The girl sank to her knees, her body trembling. The man crouched beside her, his hand on her shoulder. "Rest for a moment," he whispered. "I'll watch." She closed her eyes, leaning against a stone. For a long time, neither spoke. Only the sound of the night filled the air. At last she whispered, her voice soft. "You risked everything, though you do not even know me." The man's lips tightened, his eyes watching the trees. "I know enough," he said. "I know what it is like to be cast aside, to be told you are nothing. I lived it all my life." Her eyes opened, glowing faint in the moonlight. "Your people, they do this too?" He gave a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Not the same way, but yes, they break you in other ways. They take your worth with silence, with hunger, with neglect." His voice grew heavy, each word sharp. "I was always nothing to them, no family, no place, no hope. But I kept walking. I refused to fall." She studied him, her face softening. "In your pain, I see mine," she whispered. "And yet, you came for me, even when the world told you not to." Her voice trembled, but her eyes did not look away. "You do not know what that means." The man looked at her, his chest tightening. He did not have the words, so he said nothing. Instead, he pulled a small piece of bread from his pack, dry and old, but all he had. He broke it in half and handed it to her. Her hands shook as she took it. Staring at it as if it were gold, she ate slowly, her lips trembling. When she finished, she looked at him, tears in her eyes. "No one ever shared with me," she whispered. "Not even my own kind." He looked away, hiding the storm in his chest. "You're not alone anymore," he said quietly. They sat together in silence, the forest watching, the stars above, hidden behind black clouds. For a moment, the world felt softer, lighter, but it did not last. A distant horn blew, deep and sharp, echoing through the night. The girl's body stiffened, her eyes wide with fear. "They call others," she whispered. "The hunt will grow larger." The man stood quickly, pulling her up. "Then we move," he said firmly. "We stay ahead, always ahead." She leaned against him, her body weak but her spirit stubborn. Step by step they moved again into the dark. Hours passed like years, the forest never ending. At last, they came upon a ridge, and below it, a strange sight spread wide, a city, glowing faint with scattered lights, hidden in the valley like a secret. The man's eyes narrowed. "A city," he whispered. "Maybe shelter, maybe danger." The girl's lips parted, her face pale. "This is not their city," she whispered. "This is the city of exiles, those who defied the order, those who were cast out like me." Her voice trembled. "But they are not kind. They trust no one. They may turn us away." The man's jaw tightened. "Then we'll find a way," he said. "We cannot run forever without rest." They climbed down, slowly, step by step, until they reached the edge of the city. Strange figures watched from the shadows, their eyes suspicious, their faces hidden. Whispers rose as the girl was seen, her silver glow faint but visible. One of the exiles stepped forward, tall, scarred, his voice rough. "You bring her here?" he asked the man, his tone sharp. "She is cursed, she is marked, her presence brings death." The girl flinched, stepping back, her face filled with shame. The man stepped in front of her, his voice firm. "She is not cursed, she is alive. She is more than what they say." The scarred exile's eyes narrowed. Then you are a fool, human, and fools do not live long. The others whispered louder, torn between fear and curiosity. The man's fists clenched, but before he could speak again, the girl's hand touched his arm. Her voice was low, shaking. Do not fight them, please. They know too well what punishment means. Her words carried weight, and the whispers softened. The exiles turned their eyes away. But none struck, none dragged her out. The man realized then that though they feared her, they also pitied her. In their silence he saw reflection. Broken souls watching another broken soul. That night they were given no welcome, no shelter. Only a place near the edge of the city. Walls. The man built a small fire. The girl sat close, her hands stretched to the warmth. For the first time since the pillar, she looked almost calm. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper to herself. Why do you stay? The man looked into the flames, his face hard but his eyes softer than ever. Because leaving you would mean leaving myself, and I cannot do that anymore. Her lips parted, her eyes wet with quiet tears. For the first time she allowed herself to lean against him fully, her head resting on his shoulder. In the silence of the night, two broken lives found a bond, fragile but real. But above the city, a shadow moved. Far away, the hunter stood on the ridge, his eyes burning as he watched the valley. His voice rumbled low, filled with promise. You cannot hide, human. You cannot keep her. She will be mine again. And in the city of exiles, the fire burned low, unaware of the storm soon to fall. The city of exiles was quiet, but never peaceful. Its walls were broken, its streets cracked, its houses built from scraps of stone and iron. Everywhere the man looked, he saw faces that told stories of pain, of chains, of punishment. These were the people who had refused, just like the girl, and now they lived in the shadows. No home, no safety, only survival. The girl walked among them, her steps slow, her body still weak. Eyes followed her wherever she went. Whispers rose, like smoke. She is the marked one, someone muttered. She brings death, another hissed. The man clenched his fists, his jaw tight. But the girl only lowered her head. She had heard such words all her life, and each one cut her, but none surprised her. At night, they sat by the fire near the broken walls. The man shared the last of his food, though he had eaten little himself. The girl touched the flame with her thin hands, watching it dance. Her voice was soft, trembling like the firelight. You cannot stay with me, she whispered. You do not understand what danger you carry now. The man looked at her, his eyes steady. Tell me, he said, tell me why I must leave you. Her lips trembled, her eyes wet with tears. Because saving me means your life will never be your own again. They will hunt you. They will break you. They will never stop. The man shook his head, his voice sharp. I already had nothing. I already was nothing. And yet I chose you. I do not care what comes. Her tears fell, her body shaking. You don't understand. She whispered, her voice breaking. They will not only kill you, they will make you suffer. They will tear away everything you are, and they will do it because of me. He reached out, taking her trembling hands in his. Then let them try, he said, his voice steady as stone. I will not let them take you, not while I breathe. Her head lowered, her tears falling into the dirt. She wanted to believe him, she wanted to hold on to his words, but deep inside fear whispered that his choice would destroy him. That night she closed her eyes against his shoulder, her heart torn between hope and guilt. The next day the exiles grew restless. Rumors spread that soldiers had been seen near the valley. The horn of the hunt had been heard again. Closer this time. The city trembled, shadows of war pressing against its broken gates. The scarred exile leader approached the man, his voice sharp. You have brought them here, he said, pointing at the girl. Your choice has doomed us all. The man stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. She is not the cause, their cruelty is the cause. Do not blame her for their sins. The exile's voice rose, bitter and cold. Words will not save us when their fire falls upon this city. He turned to the girl, his voice like a blade. You should leave if you care for us. If you care for him, you should walk away, let them take you, and end this. The girl's breath caught, her heart heavy. She looked at the man, then at the city around her, the broken faces, the hungry children, the silent fear. She felt guilt claw at her chest. Maybe she was the reason their lives would end. That night, when the man finally closed his eyes in exhaustion, she stood. Her steps were quiet, her heart breaking. She walked to the edge of the city, ready to give herself back, to protect him, to protect them all. But as she stepped beyond the wall, his hand grabbed hers, strong and unyielding. She turned, her eyes wide with shock. You followed me, she whispered, her voice trembling. He pulled her close, his eyes burning with fury and pain. Did you think I would let you go alone? He asked, his voice sharp as fire. You think leaving me would save me? No, it would kill me. Her tears streamed down her face. You don't understand. They will destroy everything because of me. His hand cupped her face, his voice, softer now but unshaken. I understand enough, and I choose you still. Before either could speak again, the ground shook. A distant roar filled the air, fire rising from the horizon. The soldiers had come, their march thundered through the valley. The night sky glowed red as flames lit the distant trees. The city of exiles cried out in fear, their broken walls trembling under the storm that approached. The girl clutched the man's hand, her body shaking. It has begun, she whispered, her voice filled with dread. They will burn this place to ash to take me back. The man pulled her closer, his eyes locked on the fiery horizon. Then let them come, he said, his voice steady. We will not bow, we will not break, not now, not ever. The exiles gathered at the walls, their faces pale, but their eyes filled with the same fire of defiance. They knew they had been found. They knew war was at their door. The girl stood among them, her heart heavy with guilt and fear. But beside her stood the man, his hand firm in hers, his presence unshaken. And in that moment, even as the fire grew closer, she felt something stronger than her fear. Hope. For the first time in her life, she was not running alone. For the first time, she was not fighting alone. The storm of war loomed ahead, but together, they would face it. The city of exiles shook under the roar of war. The night sky burned red, filled with fire and smoke. The hunters had come, not one but many, armored figures marching like shadows of death. Their blades glowed with fire, their eyes burned with hate, their voices thundered across the valley. Give her to us, and you may live, they shouted, but no one in the city moved. No one spoke. Silence answered the demand. The man stood at the broken wall, the alien girl beside him. Her hands trembled, her breath sharp, but her eyes were steady. She knew this moment was the end, either of her chains or of her life. The man's hand tightened on hers, his voice firm. They will not take you, not while I stand. The exiles gathered, broken weapons in their hands, stones, sticks, scraps of iron. They were not soldiers. They were survivors. Yet tonight, survival meant defiance. The scarred exile leader stepped forward, his voice low. We have lived in shame too, long. If they burn us tonight, let them also taste our fire. The girl's chest rose and fell, heavy with fear and guilt. She whispered to the man, This is my fault. They will die for me. He shook his head, his voice sharp. No. They will. Fight because they are tired of chains just as you are. You are not the curse, you are the spark. The first wave came, armored hunters crashing against the walls. The exiles roared, throwing stones, swinging their makeshift weapons. The man fought among them, his arms burning, his body trembling, but his will unbroken. He struck, he blocked, he bled, yet he did not fall. Behind him, the girl closed her eyes, her hands pressed to the earth, light spread from her touch, soft and silver, wrapping the broken wall like a shield. The fire of the hunters struck it, but for a moment it held. The hunters roared, striking harder. The girl gasped, her strength draining, her body shaking. The man turned, fear flashing in his eyes. "You're killing yourself," he shouted. But she shook her head, her voice weak but steady. "If I do not give, then all of us die." Her light grew brighter, spilling across the battlefield. The hunters stumbled, blinded by the glow. The exiles fought, harder, their cries louder, hope burning in their chests. For a moment it seemed the impossible might be won, but the leader of the hunters stepped forward, taller than the rest, his armor black as night, his blade burning like a star. With a single strike he shattered the shield of light. The girl cried out, falling to her knees, her body shaking. The man caught her, his hands gripping her tight. "Stay with me," he begged, his voice breaking, but her eyes dimmed, her breath shallow, her strength gone. The hunter leader raised his blade, his voice thundering. "She is ours, always ours, nothing can change that." The man stepped in front of her, his arms spread wide, his body broken but his spirit blazing. "No," he said, his voice shaking but unbroken. "She belongs to no one, not anymore." The blade fell, but the man caught it with his hands, blood pouring from his palms. The fire burned his skin, but he did not let go. Behind him, the girl's eyes opened weakly, her tears falling. "Why do you suffer for me?" she whispered. He turned his head, his voice soft. "Because for the first time in my life I found something worth suffering for." Her tears glowed as they fell, and then from her chest the light burst, brighter than the moon, brighter than the fire. The hunters cried out, shielding their eyes, their blades cracking under the force. The city shook as the light spread, washing the valley in silver fire. The man held her close, his eyes blinded by the glow. But he did not let go. When the light faded, the hunters were gone, scattered like ashes in the wind. The battlefield lay silent, the exiles staring in awe. The girl lay limp in the man's arms, her body cold, her eyes closed. He shook her, his tears falling. "No, please, not like this," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You are not nothing. You are not theirs. You are alive. Please stay." Her lips moved faintly, her voice softer than the wind. "No one ever saw me as more than a curse until you." Her breath faltered, her eyes closing. The man held her tighter, his heart breaking. "Stay with me, please," he begged. The exiles gathered around, silent, their eyes filled with grief. The scarred leader lowered his head. "She gave us freedom," he whispered, "and freedom always demands a price." The man's tears fell on her face, but then a faint glow stirred in her chest. Her breath returned, shallow but real, her eyes opening. Weakly, she looked at him, her lips trembling. "I am still here," she whispered. He laughed through his tears, holding her close. "And you will never be alone again." The night was quiet now, the fire on the horizon gone, the hunters defeated. The city of exiles stood, scarred but alive. The girl leaned against the man, her strength faint but her spirit blazing. Together they stepped forward into the dawn. They were fugitives still, hunted still, broken still, but they were no longer nothing, no longer alone. And as the sun rose over the valley, painting the world in gold, the man knew the truth. This was not the end, it was the beginning, a bond forged in pain, tested in fire, and carried into the unknown.